In the 41st millennium, there is only war. 1,000,000 worlds burn under the Imperium's iron grip, each one a testament to humanity's refusal to perish in the darkness between stars. Faith reshapes reality here. Plasma melts flesh. Demons claw through the veil of sanity itself. But what happens when something older, something forged in a different crucible entirely, falls into this grim, dark nightmare? What happens when a soldier who has never known gods meets an empire built on worship? The answer arrived on Kaelith IV with the sound of tearing reality. The battlefield had been a meat grinder for 6 days. Cadian 8th Shock Troops held the ruins of Hive Primus against a tide of heretic guard, traitors who'd turned their las guns on the Emperor's servants and painted their flak armor with the 8-pointed star. Commissar Grant had already executed 2 men for cowardice. Sergeant Verak had lost half his platoon to a chaos-blessed heavy bolter nest. The air reeked of promethium, scorched flesh, and the acrid bite of lasfire that never stopped, not even for the dead. Then the sky broke. It wasn't a warp rift. Those came with tentacles and screaming and the smell of blood that hadn't been spilled yet. This was different, cleaner. A vertical slash of impossible light, crackling with energy that made Vox speeds shriek and Auspex arrays go dark. Through that wound in spacetime, something fell. Something green. The impact cratered a 5-meter radius in the rockcrete, sending shockwaves through the ground that toppled a ruined administratum building. Dust billowed, debris rained, and when it cleared, the Cadians saw him. A giant in armor. Not Astartes. The proportions were wrong. Too human. Not tall enough, not broad enough, lacking the bulk of a Space Marine's ceramite plate, but undeniably armored in something that gleamed emerald green under the Hive's dying lights, segmented and sleek in ways that made Mechanicus principles scream heresy. A golden visor stared out from a helmet that covered the face entirely. One gauntleted hand gripped a weapon, boxy, utilitarian, nothing like a bolter or lasgun. The figure rose slowly, actuators whining, and scanned the battlefield with methodical precision. Both sides stopped shooting. Heretics and loyalists alike stared at the newcomer, weapons half raised, caught between opening fire and running. The figure's head turned left, then right, taking in the carnage with what felt like cold assessment. Then he moved. Fast. Inhumanly fast, but not Astartes fast. Different. Efficient. He closed 15 meters in 3 seconds, and the heretic who'd been raising a stubber found his neck snapped with clinical precision before his synapses could fire. The figure, it, retrieved the stubber, examined it for half a heartbeat, then discarded it as inadequate. Another heretic died, then another. No ceremony, no battle cries, just brutal mechanical elimination. "Hold fire!" Commissar Grant's voice cracked through the Vox. "Identify yourself, warrior! By whose authority do you—" The figure's helmet snapped toward him. Even through the visor, Grant felt the weight of that gaze. Then a voice. Calm, human, utterly without fear or reverence. "Master Chief Petty Officer, UNSC, serial number 117. Who's in command here?" The words meant nothing. The tone meant everything. This was a soldier, a professional, and he was asking, not requesting permission. Sergeant Verak keyed his Vox. "Commissar, the heretics are rallying." Engaging. The armored figure, John 117, moved before anyone could respond. His boxy weapon came up and roared. Not lasfire, not bolter rounds, something in between. Supersonic projectiles that punched through flak armor like parchment. 3 heretics dropped. 4. The weapon's report was sharp, rhythmic, controlled. 30 rounds, 30 seconds, 14 corpses. Then the weapon clicked empty. John 117 didn't hesitate. He grabbed a lasgun from a dead Cadian, tested its weight, and fired 3 shots into a heretic squad trying to flank. 2 hits, 1 miss. He adjusted, fired again. 4 more down. A traitor with a chainsword charged him, screaming praises to the dark gods. The Master Chief sidestepped, let the chainsword bite air, and delivered an elbow strike that caved in the man's sternum. The traitor collapsed, drowning in his own blood. "Efficient," Varric muttered. "Emperor's teeth, he fights like a Kazarkin." "He fights like nothing I've seen," Grent replied, eyes narrow. "Vox Inquisitorial Command. Tell them we have something." The battle ended in 11 minutes. The heretics broke when their commander, a former lieutenant who'd sold his soul for a demon blade, tried to duel the Green Giant and got his skull crushed underfoot. The Cadians advanced, reclaiming the plaza, but they gave the armored stranger a wide berth. He stood in the center of the carnage, reloading the lasgun with practiced efficiency despite its crude design, his movements economical and precise. Grant approached, bolt pistol held low but ready. "Warrior, you fight with the Emperor's enemies. That suggests loyalty. But your armor, your weapon, these are unknown to the Administratum. Speak plainly. Are you Astartes, some lost chapter, a prototype?" John 117 turned to face him fully. The golden visor reflected Grant's own face back at him, distorted and small. When the voice came, it was measured, patient, but there was an edge beneath it, like a blade sheathed in velvet. "I'm not from here. I don't know what an Astartes is. I don't know who this Emperor is. I was in slipspace and something pulled me through. Now I'm here, and I need intel. Where am I? What year? What's the strategic situation?" Silence. The kind that precedes executions. Grant's hand tightened on his bolt pistol. Around them, Cadians raised lasguns. John 117 didn't move, but his posture shifted, weight redistributed, ready to spring. The air between them crackled with tension. Then Varric stepped forward, grizzled and pragmatic. "Commissar, he killed 14 heretics without hesitation. Whatever he is, he bleeds the traitors. That's good enough for now." Grant's jaw worked. Finally, he nodded. "You're on Kaelith IV, segmentum obscurus. The year is irrelevant. It is always the 41st millennium, and there is only war. You claim ignorance of the God Emperor of mankind." His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper that borders on heresy. "I claim ignorance of your situation, not my competence. Point me at the enemy. Give me ammunition. We can sort the rest out later." Commissar Grant stared at him for a long moment. Then he holstered his bolt pistol. "Very well, John 117. You will accompany us to command. Interrogators will want words with you. Many words. And if you prove false," he let the threat hang. "Understood." The Master Chief slung the lasgun across his back. "Lead the way." As they marched through the ruins, Varric sidled up beside the towering figure. "That armor, what Forge World made it? I've never seen plating like that. And those shields, did I see them shimmer when a shot got close?" "Energy shields, standard issue. Where I'm from." "Where you're from? And where's that?" The golden visor turned toward him. For a moment, Varric thought he saw something flicker across that expressionless faceplate. Loss, maybe, or longing. "Far away, Sergeant. Very far away." Above them, Kaelith IV's burning sky churned with ash and the distant scream of artillery. The Master Chief walked among these soldiers of the Imperium, a ghost from another universe, and wondered how long it would take before they tried to kill him. Behind them, unnoticed in the rubble, a hunched figure in crimson robes watched through augmentic eyes. Magus Explorator Van 12 Sigma whispered a machine prayer, and began uploading data to the Mechanicus fleet in orbit. The Omniscii had delivered a miracle, or a test. Either way, the hunt had begun.
The inquisitorial compound squatted like a tumor in Hive Primus's administrative sector. All black stone and iron aquilas, gargoyles leering from battlements as if daring the unfaithful to approach. John 117 catalogued 17 gun emplacements, 3 blast doors, and at least 40 armed personnel visible from the courtyard alone. The Cadians who escorted him hung back at the gates, clearly relieved to hand him off. Only Commissar Grent remained, stone-faced and watchful. Inside, the air tasted of incense and suspicion. They'd taken his weapons. Temporarily, they claimed. The MA5 assault rifle had caused an uproar. Tech priests swarmed it like scavengers on carrion, scanning, muttering Binharic cant, arguing whether it was Xenos or Archaeotech. One had tried to dismantle it. John had broken the man's mechadendrite with a precise strike before anyone could stop him. The rifle stayed whole. After that, they kept their distance. Now he stood in an interrogation chamber, hands unbound, but flanked by 6 Tempestus scions in carapace armor, hell guns trained on his chest. Across a plasteel table sat 2 figures, Inquisitor Halaestis of the Ordo Xenos, a woman whose augmetic left eye glowed like a coal, and Magos Explorator Ven 12 Sigma, the robed cyborg from the battlefield. Between them, a hololith projector displayed rotating images of John's armor, the MA5, his energy shields flickering under fire. Halaestis spoke first. Her voice was silk over razor wire. "You claim to be human." "I am human. No hesitation, no deference." "Your genetic profile suggests otherwise." She tapped a data slate. "Our Shirjans took samples while you were indisposed during transit. Your musculature is augmented. Your bones are reinforced with ceramic carbide. Your blood carries enhancement markers we've never encountered. You are either a biological weapon, a product of heretical gene craft, or something far worse." John's vitals remained steady. He'd expected this. The Spartan II augmentations were military-grade, cutting-edge for the UNSC, but here they probably looked like witchcraft. "I'm a soldier. My enhancements were standard for my unit. We fought to protect humanity from extinction." "Extinction?" Halaestis leaned forward. "Against what enemy?" "The Covenant, a coalition of alien species bent on religious genocide. We held them off for 27 years. Silence. Then Ven 12 Sigma's vocalizer crackled. "Xenos! You consorted with Xenos!" "I killed them," John corrected flatly. "Thousands, maybe more. That was the job." The Magos' mechadendrites twitched with agitation. "Your weapon, this MA5 assault rifle, operates on principles adjacent to stub technology, yet its construction defies standard template construct parameters. Its materials are unregistered alloys. Its firing mechanism incorporates innovations the Omniscia has not blessed. Explain." John's jaw tightened behind his helmet. They wanted his tech. Of course they did. Every faction in every war wanted an edge. It's human engineering, 20th century principles refined over 400 years of warfare. No gods involved. Halaestis' augmetic eye flared. "No gods? You deny the Emperor's divinity?" "I don't know your Emperor," John said carefully. "Where I'm from, humanity survived without worshipping anyone. We built ships that crossed light years, We fought species with technology that dwarfed ours and won through tactics, sacrifice, and sheer stubborn refusal to quit. If your emperor did the same, I respect that. But I don't kneel." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. One of the scions shifted, finger edging toward his hellgun's trigger. Commissar Grant, standing by the door, placed a hand on his bolt pistol. Halaestis remained perfectly still, studying John like a xenospecimen pinned to a board. Then she smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "Fascinating. You are either the most sophisticated heretic I've encountered, or you are telling the truth, which is far more dangerous. Tell me, Master Chief, what do you know of the warp?"
Sharp ran a tactical assessment. They kept using that word, warp. The soldiers on the battlefield had mentioned it too, with the kind of fear usually reserved for the Flood. Nothing concrete. Your people mentioned it when I arrived. Some kind of parallel dimension? The immaterium, then 12 Sigma intoned. The realm of souls and demons, where thought becomes reality and reality dissolves into madness. The medium through which we traverse the stars, and the source of all psychic phenomena. Psychic, John repeated. You're saying there's measurable, weaponized psionic activity in this universe. Not just weaponized, Halastis said quietly. Worshipped. The Emperor of mankind sits upon the golden throne, a psychic beacon so powerful he guides our ships through the warp's currents. Without him, humanity would be lost. And yet you claim to have crossed interstellar space without such guidance. Slipstream space, John said. Different FTL principle. We don't punch through dimensions, we compress space-time. Or we did. His voice hardened. Something went wrong during my last jump. A Forerunner artifact activated. I think it tore a hole between your universe and mine. Forerunner, Halastis mused. Another xeno-species? Ancient. Dead for 100,000 years. They built technology that could destroy galaxies or seed life across star systems. I don't fully understand it. Nobody does. The Inquisitor and the Magos exchanged a glance. Some silent communication through datacant or subtle gesture. Finally, Halastis leaned back. You present a theological paradox, John 1:17. You are clearly human, yet you exist outside the Emperor's light. Your technology is advanced, yet heretical. Your combat prowess is undeniable, yet you acknowledge no master. The Ordo Xenos has 3 options. Execute you as a potential threat, bind you to the Imperium's service, or study you. Study, John said flatly, like a lab specimen. Like a weapon that doesn't know its purpose yet. John's hands curled into fists. The scions tensed, but he forced himself to stillness. Anger was a luxury he couldn't afford. Not here, not without intel, allies, or ammunition. What do you want? Cooperation, Halastis said. Deploy with Imperial forces. Demonstrate your capabilities. Prove your armor and weapons can serve the Emperor's will. In exchange, we provide you resources. Ammunition fabrication, technical support, intelligence on this rift that brought you here. Refuse, and you will be dissected by the Mechanicus to ensure your technology doesn't fall into heretical hands. It wasn't a choice. It was a noose dressed as negotiation. John met her gaze through his visor. I'll fight,
But I'm not your servant. I'm a soldier. Point me at the enemy and I'll do the job, but I don't take orders from people who threaten me. Everyone takes orders in the Imperium, Grant interjected sharply. Even Space Marines answer to their chapter masters. Even Inquisitors bow to the High Lords. You think yourself exempt. I think I'm the only one here who's fought a 30-year war without worshipping a corpse on a throne. The words hung like a grenade with the pin pulled. Grant drew his bolt pistol. Two scions opened fire. Hellgun blasts screamed toward John's chest and splashed against shimmering energy shields. The kinetic force drove him back half a step, but the armor held. The shields flared translucent blue, crackling as they redistributed the energy, then stabilized. John didn't move to retaliate. He just stood there, proving the point. Throne of Terra, Ven 12 Sigma whispered. Energy field projection without visible emitters. The armor itself is the conduit. Omnitia, preserve us. Halastis raised her hand. Stand down, all of you. Her voice cut through the chaos like a power blade. The scions hesitated, then lowered their weapons. Grant holstered his pistol, but kept his hand on it. The Inquisitor arose, circling John slowly, examining the fading shimmer of his shields. Remarkable. Your defiance would earn any man a bolt round, but you've proven more valuable alive than dead. Very well, Master Chief. You will accompany the Cadian 8th on their next operation. A Cathal cult has seized a mining facility in the Hive's underbelly. Cleanse it. Show us what a soldier from beyond the stars can do. And my weapons will be returned under supervision. She nodded to Ven 12 Sigma. The Magos will assign a Lex mechanic to observe your equipment. Any attempts to sabotage, escape, or consort with heretical forces will result in immediate execution. Are we clear? John considered his options. He was alone in a hostile universe, surrounded by fanatics who viewed free thought as heresy. His shields were holding, but they drained faster here. Something about the ambient energy, the warp bleeding through reality, destabilized the Covenant-derived technology. He had maybe 6 full recharges before the system needed recalibration. His ammo was gone.
But only if he survived long enough to find it. Clear, he said. Halastis smiled again, and this time it was almost genuine. Welcome to the 41st millennium, Master Chief. I do hope you survive it. They returned his gear in an armory that smelled of machine oil and sanctified unguents. The MA5 had been tagged with purity seals, strips of parchment covered in Gothic script, wax-stamped with aquillas. John ripped them off. A tech priest gasped in horror. John ignored him, running a diagnostic. Magazine, empty. Firing mechanism, intact. Optics, functional. Your ammunition, Ven 12 Sigma said, extending a mag-locked container. Inside, 30 fresh rounds, lovingly fabricated, each one stamped with high Gothic prayers. We replicated your projectile specifications. The Omnitia guided our hands. You will find them adequate. John loaded the magazine, chambered a round, and performed a press check. The round gleamed, hand-tooled, probably worth more than a guardsman's annual salary. Thanks. Do not thank me, the Magos replied. Thank the machine god. Without his blessing, your weapon would be scrap. John holstered the rifle on his back. Where I'm from, we thanked the engineers. Here, the Magos said coldly. They are one and the same. Outside, the Cadian 8th assembled in the compound's muster yard. Sergeant Virac approached, grinning despite the grime caking his face. Heard you survived the interrogation. Most don't.
Inquisitor Helastus once flayed a man for mispronouncing the Emperor's prayer. You called him a corpse and walked out with your skin on. That's either courage or insanity. Neither, John said. Just facts. Varrac's grin faded. Careful with those, Chief. Facts get you killed here. Faith keeps you alive. John looked across the assembled troops, men and women who'd march into hell because a commissar told them to, who'd die by the thousands because their officers deemed it necessary. He thought of the ODSTs, the Marines, even the Spartans. They'd been soldiers, not zealots. They'd fought because they chose to, not because they feared a bullet in the back. "Then I'll stick with what I know," John said quietly. The Vox crackled. Orders came through. Deploy in 20 minutes. The cult had awakened something in the minds, something that screamed through the rock and made augurs weep blood. The Cadians checked their lasguns, muttered prayers, and prepared to die. John checked his shields, 70% charge, and wondered how long it would take before the Imperium decided he was more heretic than hero. In the shadows of the armory, Inquisitor Helastus watched through a scrying lens. Beside her, a cowled figure whispered, "He is dangerous, my lady. His very existence questions the Emperor's supremacy." "Yes," Helastus murmured, "which is precisely why we keep him close. If he can be turned, he becomes a weapon. If he cannot," she smiled, "then we learn what it takes to kill something that should not exist." The cowled figure bowed and melted into darkness. The hunt, indeed, had begun. The underhive of Kaelith IV was a cathedral to human misery. 50 levels down, past the manufactorums and hab blocks, past the water reclaimers and the corpse starch processors, the architecture gave up pretending to serve the living. Here, darkness was a substance you could taste, thick with promethium fumes, recycled air that had passed through 1,000,000 lungs, and the sweet rot stench of bodies left to decompose in the dark. Glow strips flickered at random intervals, casting the Cadians' shadows long and wrong across rusted bulkheads. John 117's motion tracker painted the tunnel ahead in clean geometric lines. 60 meters forward, 2 heat signatures around the corner, 3 more in an alcove to the left. He keyed his helmet's external speakers. "Contact. 5 hostiles. Staggered formation. Recommend split advance." "Belay that," Captain Heron snapped over the Vox. The officer was Cadian Old Guard. Scarred face, iron jaw, suspicious eyes that had watched John like a heretic weapon since deployment. "We advance as one. The Emperor protects the faithful, not those who think themselves above his guidance." John bit back a response. 6 hours into the operation, and the command structure was already fracturing. Heron commanded by doctrine, not adaptation. Sergeant Varrac followed orders, but clearly disagreed with half of them. Commissar Grant stalked to the rear, bolt pistol ready to enforce morale. And John was the outsider, the variable they couldn't categorize. The fire team rounded the corner in formation, las guns up, moving with practiced efficiency, despite their commander's rigidity. The cultists opened fire immediately, autoguns barking in the confined space, muzzle flashes strobing the darkness. 2 Cadians went down screaming. Lasfire answered, brilliant lances of red that scorched flesh and ignited flak armor. John moved. He crossed 15 meters in 3 seconds, shields flaring as autogun rounds sparked off them. The cultists wore miners' overalls stitched with 8-pointed stars, their faces tattooed with chaos iconography that made John's teeth ache to look at. Something about the patterns pulled at perception, made angles wrong. He put 3 rounds through the first cultist's chest. The MA5's report was sharp and controlled. The second cultist died before he could scream. The third tried to run. John caught him by the collar and slammed him into the bulkhead hard enough to crack ceramite. "Where's your leader?" John demanded. The cultist laughed, a wet, broken sound. "The flesh weaver sees you, false one, sees the cracks in your soul. You are alone, alone, alone." John silenced him with a pistol whip. The man crumpled, unconscious. Behind him, the Cadians advanced, checking bodies, securing the corridor. Varrock approached, shaking his head. "You didn't kill him." "He's intelligence," John replied. "Interrogate him." "We don't interrogate heretics, we purge them." Varrock raised his las pistol. John's hand shot out, gripping Varrock's wrist. Not hard enough to break, but immovable. He knows the facility layout, maybe who's in charge, maybe how many there are. "You want to walk blind into an ambush?" Varrock stared at him. Then slowly he lowered the weapon. "The Commissar won't like this. The Commissar can take it up with me." The Vox cut through. "Master Chief, you will follow engagement protocols. We do not take prisoners. We do not negotiate with the corrupted. We cleanse and move forward. Is that understood?" John looked at the unconscious cultist, then at the two dead Cadians being dragged to the side of the corridor. Good soldiers. They died because Heron refused to adapt tactics. He keyed his Vox. "Understood, sir. Next time, I'll let them kill more of your men before I intervene." Silence. Then, "You overstep, outsider. I win fights, Captain. That's what you brought me for." The Vox went dead. Varrock grimaced. "You just made an enemy." "Wouldn't be the first," John said. He secured the cultist's hands with zip ties, improvised from wiring, and hauled him upright. "Move out. We're wasting time." The mining facility's heart was a nightmare rendered in iron and flesh. They found it 3 levels deeper, a vast chamber where ore conveyors had been repurposed into altars, where ventilation shafts dripped something that wasn't water, where the walls breathed. Fleshy growths pulsed between the machinery, veins thick as cables pumping iridescent fluid. And in the center, suspended on chains above a pit that glowed with sourceless light, hung the flesh weaver. It had been human once, maybe. Now it was 8 feet of distended limbs and additional joints, skin stretched translucent over muscle that twitched with unnatural rhythm. 4 arms ending in surgical implements, scalpels, bone saws, flay hooks gestured in arcane patterns. Its face was a canvas of self-mutilation. No eyes, no nose, just a mouth split ear to ear, filled with teeth that didn't belong to any single species. Around it, cultists knelt in concentric circles, chanting in a language that made reality shudder.
"Throne of Terror," Commissar Grant breathed. "A chaos sorcerer. We need fire support," John finished. His motion tracker was going haywire, heat signatures multiplying, sensor ghosts overlapping real contacts. The warp was bleeding through here, thick and cloying. His shields flickered, power drain accelerating. 60%, 55. The energy matrix couldn't stabilize against whatever psychic pressure saturated this place. Captain Heron opened the Vox to command. "This is Cadian Actual. We have a major chaos manifestation. Requesting orbital strike. Coordinates." The flesh weaver's head snapped toward them. No eyes, but it saw. It spoke, and its voice was nails on glass, was children screaming, was the sound John's bone marrow made. "The empty one, the hollow soldier. You walk through our realm untouched by her gifts, unmarked by his blessings. You are wrong." The cultists rose as one. 50, 60, too many. "Engage!" Heron roared. Las fire flooded the chamber, brilliant crimson cutting through the bloom. Cultists burned, their screams mixing with chants that never stopped. John dropped 3 with controlled bursts, compensating for the MA5's recoil in the fetid air. Beside him, Varroc's squad established a firing line,
disciplined and professional despite the horror before them. But the cultists kept coming, and some of them weren't dying right. Las rounds punched through torsos, and they laughed, bleeding light instead of blood, their wounds knitting with flesh that grew like cancer. "Their warp touched," Grant shouted. "Aim for the head! The Emperor demands—" The Fleshweaver moved, impossibly fast for something so malformed. It descended on chains that unhooked themselves, landed in the cultist press, and began its work. Akkadians screamed as surgical implements carved through carapace armor like parchment. Another was lifted by invisible force, limbs bending backward until bones snapped like kindling. Reality warped around the sorcerer, angles wrong, distances meaningless, time stuttering. John's shields dropped to 40%. He made a tactical decision. "Varric, suppressing fire, concentrate on the cultists. Keep them off me." "What are you?" John didn't answer. He charged. 50 meters across open ground. The cultists turned toward him, autoguns barking. Rounds hammered his shields, 30%, 25%, but momentum carried him forward. The Fleshweaver's mouthless face tracked him, and John felt pressure against his mind. Not thoughts, not voices, just weight, pushing down, trying to crack him open and see what made him different. It found nothing. The Spartan neural interface was hardwired, biological synthetic hybrid that didn't interface with anything resembling this universe's psychic phenomena. The Fleshweaver recoiled, confusion rippling through its gestalt form, and in that half-second of hesitation, John was on it. He drove his fist into what passed for a rib cage. The impact would have shattered concrete. The sorcerer's flesh gave like rotten fruit, then resisted, then pushed back with strength that had no right to exist. They grappled, and John realized with cold clarity that he was fighting something that didn't obey physics. Every hold he applied, the sorcerer reconfigured its anatomy to escape. Every strike landed on muscle that became bone, became cartilage, became nothing. But it was still flesh, and flesh could break. John activated his helmet's external speakers, cranked the volume to maximum, and played the only thing he had, a recorded combat log from the Covenant War. Sengeli battle cant, Ungoi death screams, the subsonic harmonics of a scarab's main gun. Noise. Pure, discordant, alien noise from a universe this sorcerer had never touched. The Fleshweaver shrieked. John didn't understand why it worked. Maybe the sounds were so foreign that even chaos couldn't process them. Maybe the warp recoiled from frequencies it didn't recognize. But the sorcerer's grip loosened. John drew his combat knife, activated the energy shield built into his armor's wrist mount for close-quarters combat, and drove the blade up through what might have been a throat. The Fleshweaver exploded into light and viscera. The cultists collapsed en masse, strings cut, their bodies deflating like punctured bladders. The fleshy growths on the walls withered, blackening and crumbling to ash. The unnatural light in the pit guttered and died. Silence rushed in, broken only by the ragged breathing of surviving Cadians and the low hum of John's shields recharging. 15%, 20%, climbing slowly. John stood in the center of the carnage, ichor dripping from his armor, and felt the weight of 24 eyes on him. Captain Heron approached slowly, lasgun still raised. What did you do?" "Killed it," John said simply. He cleaned his knife on a piece of relatively untainted cloth and sheathed it. "That was a chaos sorcerer, blessed by the ruinous powers. It should have torn you apart, should have broken your mind, should have—" "It tried. Didn't work." Commissar Grant stepped forward, bolt pistol drawn but not aimed. His face was ashen. "You resisted a psychic assault, without sanctioned training, without the Emperor's protection. How?" John turned to face him.
Through his visor, he could see Grent's pupils dilated, sweat beading despite the cold. Fear, not of the sorcerer, of John. Where I'm from, we fought the Flood, a parasitic species that rewrote biology and corrupted minds. We learned to resist. We had to. And I'm the last one left who knows how. The last, Varric echoed quietly. Throne, you really are alone. John didn't respond. He moved to the pit, scanned its depths. Empty now, but residual energy readings suggested it had been a conduit. Something had been trying to push through from elsewhere. The warp, probably. This universe's version of hell clawing at reality. He marked the coordinates, uploaded the data to his armor's log. Captain Heron lowered his weapon. Command is sending extraction. We've accomplished the mission. He paused, struggling. Your combat effectiveness is noted, but your methods saved your men. 12 casualties instead of 40. You're welcome. Heron's jaw tightened. You do not fight like a soldier of the Imperium. I'm not a soldier of the Imperium. Then what are you? John looked at the dead sorcerer, at the Cadians nursing wounds, at the darkness pressing in from all sides. He thought about the Master Chief Petty Officer who'd boarded the Pillar of Autumn a lifetime ago, about battles against impossible odds, about the friends he'd lost and the duty that never ended. I'm what's left, he said quietly. The extraction took 2 hours. Valkyrie assault carriers descended into the Underhive, maglocking to rusted platforms while stormtroopers secured the perimeter. John watched the Cadians load their dead onto stretchers, heard the prayers muttered over each corpse, saw the way they avoided looking at him directly, like he was a weapon they needed but didn't trust. Inquisitor Halaestus was waiting at the landing zone, flanked by her retinue. She studied John with her augmetic eye, data scrolling across the crimson lens. The Flesh Weaver is destroyed. Captain Heron reports you engaged it alone. Reckless. Effective. Heretical, she said softly. You resist the warp as if you were a blank, a soulless one, anathema to psychers. Yet our tests confirm you have a soul, faint but present. Explain. Can't. I don't understand it either. Halaestus circled him, servo-skull recording devices hovering close. You are a paradox wrapped in heresy and dipped in Xenos methodology. By all rights, I should have you lobotomized and turned into a servitor. But... She stopped, meeting his visor with her glowing eye. You are too useful and too dangerous to waste. So what now? John asked. Now, Halaestus said, we see if you can be turned into a true weapon of the Imperium, or if you'll need to be put down like a rabid grox. She smiled thinly. I confess, I'm curious which it will be. John said nothing. Around them, the Cadians boarded the Valkyries, disappearing into the belly of the Imperium's war machine. And John realized with cold certainty that he wasn't just fighting chaos anymore. He was fighting to remain himself in a universe that demanded absolute.
The unbreakable doctrine hung in Kaelith IV's orbit like a Gothic cathedral built from rage and iron. 10 kilometers of battleship, bristling with macro cannons and lance batteries, its hull scarred by centuries of void combat. John watched through a viewport as the Valkyrie approached, the ship's sheer scale dwarfing anything the UNSC had fielded. The Infinity had been massive. This was something else. Excess rendered functional, faith made manifest in steel. They'd summoned him to the command deck. Not a request, a summons. The corridors were claustrophobic despite their height. Every surface carved with scripture, servitors hardwired into cogitator banks, processing firing solutions, and dominating it all stood Lord Captain Erastus Varn, a mountain of a man in crimson void coat, half his face replaced by augmetics that clicked and whirred with each micro-expression. And beside him, in Terminator armor that made space marines look like mortals, stood the towering figure John had been briefed about, but never expected to meet. Brother Captain Aldrich of the Crimson Castellanes, Adeptus Astartes, Space Marine. The transhuman warrior was 9 feet of ceramite and gene-forged fury, his armor the color of dried blood with gold trim and purity seals cascading like waterfalls from every surface. The helmet was mag-locked to his belt, revealing a face that belonged on ancient statues, strong-jawed, scarred, with eyes that burned with fanatical conviction. When he spoke, his voice resonated like a war drum. So, this is the aberration. John stopped 3 meters away. He'd run threat assessments on Astartes since learning they existed. Enhanced strength, multiple times baseline human, superhuman reflexes, redundant organs, acid spit, tactical genius bred through hypno-indoctrination, and absolute, unwavering faith. In other words, everything the Spartan Twos were, turned up to 11 and baptized in fanaticism. Master Chief Petty Officer John 117, he said evenly. Titles mean nothing to me, outsider. Aldrich descended from the command dais, each footstep a thundercrack on the deck plating. I am told you slew a chaos sorcerer in single combat, that you resist the warp as no mortal should, that you carry weapons and armor no forge world has blessed. He stopped an arm's length away, and John felt the sheer presence of him, psycho-indoctrinated authority radiating like heat. I am told you do not worship the God Emperor of mankind. I said that's correct. The deck went silent. Officers stopped shouting. Servitors ceased their clicking. Even the distant hum of the ship's plasma drives seemed to pause. Aldrich stared at him for 10 heartbeats. Then, faster than John's motion tracker could register, the Space Marine's power fist lashed out, a backhand that would have decapitated a baseline human. John's shields flared brilliant blue. The impact drove him backward 3 meters, boots scraping metal, but he stayed upright. His HUD screamed warnings, shield integrity at 42% from a single strike. Aldrich looked at his gauntlet, then at John, and something like respect flickered across his features. Interesting. Your shields hold against Astartes' strength, for now. He flexed his fingers, servos whining. But shields fail, outsider. Faith does not. Faith didn't kill that sorcerer, John replied, straightening. Tactics did. Heresy! The roar came from a chaplain John hadn't noticed. Black armor, skull-faced helmet, Crozius Arcanum crackling with power. You dare blaspheme the Emperor's divine protection? I dare state facts, John said, not taking his eyes off Aldrich. Your Emperor might be powerful, might even be a god by some definitions. But where I'm from, we won wars without praying to anyone. And we're still here. Lord Captain Varn cleared his throat. Brother Captain, perhaps we should... Silence. Aldrich raised a hand, and Varn shut his mouth instantly. The Space Marine circled John slowly, examining him like a puzzle. I have fought orcs who laughed at death, Eldar who danced between bolter rounds, Tyranids who devoured entire worlds, but I have never encountered someone like you. Human in form, yet alien in spirit. Tell me, what makes you different? John considered his words carefully. He was outgunned, outnumbered, and Aldrich could probably tear him apart if it came to combat. But respect, military respect, was a currency he understood. Training, experience, augmentation. I was 6 years old when they took me. Spent the next 14 years learning to be a weapon. I've fought for 30 years against enemies that wanted humanity extinct. I've killed thousands, maybe more. I've watched every other member of my team die." He paused. "And I'm still standing because I adapted, because I learned, because faith alone doesn't win wars. Soldiers do." Aldrich stopped circling. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, almost contemplative. "You speak as a warrior, not a zealot, not a crusader. A soldier who fights because he must, not because he believes. In the 41st millennium, such men are rare." He turned to Varn. "What is the strategic situation?" Varn activated a hololith. Kaelith IV materialized above the table, a planet wrapped in green and brown, pockmarked with hive cities. Red icons blinked across the southern continent. Chaos forces have seized 7 mining facilities and 3 hive sectors. We estimate 50,000 cultists, reinforced by traitor guard elements. And, he hesitated, demonic manifestations. They're preparing a summoning ritual. If it completes, this world burns. "Exterminatus?" someone suggested. "Unacceptable," Aldrich said flatly. Kaelith IV produces 70% of the sector's adamantium. We need those mines operational. We need boots on the ground. We need assets that can operate independently, strike hard, and disappear. I saw where this was going. You want me to go behind enemy lines? I want you to prove you're worth the resources we have spent keeping you alive," Aldrich corrected. "The Mechanicus has fabricated 500 rounds for your weapon. Our armory can provide shaped charges, frag grenades, whatever human-scale ordnance you require. In exchange, you will infiltrate the primary summoning site, eliminate the leadership, and disrupt the ritual. Alone." "Why alone?"
"Because I will not risk the lives of the Emperor's faithful on an outsider's mission. If you succeed, you prove your value. If you fail," Aldrich shrugged, ceramite plates grinding, "you were already a liability." It was a suicide mission dressed as an opportunity. John had run dozens like it against the Covenant. The difference was, back then, he'd had Cortana running interference, orbital support on standby, and the knowledge that Command actually wanted him to succeed. Here, half the room probably hoped he'd die so they could dissect his corpse. "What about extraction?" he asked. "Earn it," Aldrich said. "Complete the mission, and I will personally ensure you receive whatever resources you need to find your way home. Fail, and your body will be shipped to Mars for the Mechanicus to study. Those are your options." John ran the numbers. The summoning site would be heavily fortified, unknown enemy composition, no intel on defensive emplacements or patrol patterns, no backup, limited ammunition, shields at questionable efficiency this deep in warp-saturated territory. Acceptable odds? Barely. "I'll need a tactical map, real-time surveillance if you've got it, and a comm link that works both ways. I'm not going dark just because you don't trust me." Aldrich smiled. It was not a kind expression. "You will have a vox bead, nothing more. Prove yourself worthy, and perhaps next time you will earn our trust." He turned to Varn. "Prepare a drop pod. Launch at 0400 hours. The Emperor protects." "The Emperor protects," the bridge crew echoed. John said nothing. The armory smelled of gun oil and sanctified promethium. Magus Explorator Ven 12 Sigma waited among rows of weapons that could level hive blocks, with his macadendrites arranging John's gear with obsessive precision. 500 rounds for the MA5, each one hand-blessed. 12 frag grenades, human pattern but functional. 4 melta charges, shaped thermal lances that could punch through armor plate, and a monofilament combat knife that made John's standard issue look like a toy. "Your shields,"
then 12 Sigma said abruptly. They fail more frequently in warp-dense environments. Why? John checked the MA5's action. Energy matrix can't filter out the psychic interference. The Covenant technology they're based on never encountered anything like your warp. Covenant? The Magus's optical sensors focused with razor intensity. Xenos technology. Your shields are built on alien principles. Captured, reverse-engineered, improved. He met his gaze. We used every advantage we could get. Survival meant adapting. Heresy, the Magus said, but there was no venom in it, just curiosity. And yet, effective. The Omnissiah teaches that knowledge is sacred, but he does not specify whose knowledge. He leaned closer. Tell me, John 117, in your universe, did your machines rebel? The question caught John off guard. No, we had AI. Some went rogue, neural degeneration after 7 years, but they were tools, partners sometimes, never gods. Partners. The word emerged like a prayer. Here, the machine spirits are temperamental. They must be appeased, blessed, coaxed into service. We lost the knowledge to truly understand them millennia ago, and so we worship what we cannot comprehend. He paused. Do you pity us? John considered. I pity anyone who fights a war they can't understand. The Magus's vocalizer emitted something that might have been a laugh. Then you pity the entire Imperium. We are all soldiers in a war older than comprehension, fighting enemies we cannot name, for an emperor who may or may not still live, and yet we endure. He handed John the melter charges. Perhaps that is faith, or perhaps it is simply stubbornness rendered divine. Either way, it keeps you fighting, John said. Indeed. The Magus withdrew. You deploy in 3 hours. I have placed a micro-beacon in your armor, subdermal, undetectable to standard augers. If you succeed, activate it. If you fail... He trailed off. If you fail, I will ensure your technology does not fall into heretical hands. A final mercy. John nodded. Appreciated. Do not thank me yet, Master Chief. The site you infiltrate, our intelligence suggests it is more than a summoning ground. It is a temple, and temples have gods. The drop pod was a coffin with thrusters, barely 3 meters across, lined with impact gel and restraint harnesses that looked like medieval torture devices. John strapped in, feeling the pod's machine spirit hum against his armor. Through the small viewport, he watched the unbreakable doctrine recede as the pod launched, mag-catapulted into Kaelith IV's gravity well. Re-entry was violence. The pod shook hard enough to rattle teeth, heat blooming across the viewport until it glowed cherry red. G-forces crushed down, 6, 7, 8 times standard gravity. The harness groaned. John's augmented physiology handled it, but barely. Then retro thrusters fired. The pod screamed through lower atmosphere, and impact cratered him into Kaelith IV's blasted surface. He was 10 kilometers from the target. Night had fallen, but the sky glowed sickly green, warp contamination bleeding through reality. The landscape was industrial hellscape, shattered pipelines, toxic sludge pools, the skeletal remains of mining mechs half buried in ash. And in the distance, rising like a wound in the world, the temple. It had been a processing facility once. Now it was something else. Chaos architecture, impossible angles, structures that hurt to perceive, towers that twisted into dimensions the eye couldn't follow. Balefile wreathed its apex. Screams echoed across the wasteland, though no mouths were visible. John activated his motion tracker. Contacts, dozens, hundreds, all converging on the temple. He checked his gear one last time, chambered around, and started walking.
Somewhere behind him, in orbit, Brother Captain Aldrich watched through a scrying lens. He walks toward damnation as if it were another battlefield. Perhaps, Inquisitor Halistus murmured beside him, "To him it is." Aldrich's jaw tightened. Then let us see if faith or skill prove stronger when hell itself opens its gates. The lens went dark, and John 117, alone in the darkness, moved toward the temple where gods were being born.
The perimeter was a killing field dressed as worship. John crouched in the shadow of a collapsed refinery tower, motion tracker painting the approach in clinical detail. Cultists patrolled in groups of 6, poorly disciplined, overlapping routes, watching the sky more than the ground. They expected orbital bombardment, not infiltration. Good. Between patrol rotations, he had 17-second windows. Enough. He moved like a ghost through the industrial wasteland, MJOLNIR's reactive camouflage bending light around him. Not true invisibility, but close enough in the darkness. His shields hummed at 60%, struggling against the ambient warp saturation that made his HUD flicker with static. The temple loomed closer with each sprint, a cathedral of madness where conveyor systems had been rebuilt as spiral staircases leading nowhere, where loading docks gaped like screaming mouths, where reality itself seemed negotiable. First contact came at the outer gate, a makeshift checkpoint of scrap metal and corpses arranged in geometric patterns that made John's eyes water. 4 cultists, bored and confident. He put subsonic rounds through 3 skulls before they registered his presence. The 4th managed a strangled cry before John's knife found his throat. Bodies dropped silently. John dragged them into shadow, appropriated their vox frequency, and listened. 2. Flesh Weaver's death has delayed the ritual, but the Apostle says we proceed at moonrise. 2. More sacrifice is needed. The Changer of Ways demands. That green armored thing the Imperials deployed, I heard it killed Sarvik with its bare hands. John switched off the vox. They knew about him. Of course they did. Chaos wasn't stupid, just insane. He marked the intel. Ritual at moonrise, approximately 90 minutes. A timetable. Good. Objectives crystallized. Locate the Apostle, kill him, disrupt the ritual, extract before the entire cult converged. Simple. Suicidal. Standard. He scaled the temple's outer wall using mag boots, armor servos whining softly as he climbed 15 meters of diseased stone that pulsed like living tissue. At the top, he paused. The temple's interior courtyard spread below like a vision from hell. 500 cultists arranged in concentric circles around a central dais where something wrong was taking shape. A portal maybe, or a wound. Reality bent around it, light refracting through impossible angles, and at its base stood the Apostle. He was tall, wrapped in robes that seemed woven from shadow and screaming faces. His head was a mass of too many eyes, too many mouths, all speaking different syllables that somehow harmonized into a single profane prayer. Around him, chained captives, imperial citizens, maybe 100, wept and begged while cultists prepared ritual blades. John's hand tightened on the MA5. One shot, center mass. Drop the Apostle, scatter the cultists, improvise from there. Then the Apostle's dozen eyes snapped toward him. "The Hollow One watches," the creature said, its voice layered with frequencies that made John's neural interface scream warnings. "The man who walks through our realm untouched. Come, little ghost, let us see what your emptiness truly means." The cultists turned as one. 500 pairs of eyes locked onto John's position. He dropped a frag grenade, activated camouflage, and ran. The explosion flowered behind him, shrapnel and blessed promethium scything through packed bodies. Screams erupted, autogun fire stitched the walls where he'd been standing. John vaulted a railing, landed in a corridor that smelled of copper and decay, and sprinted deeper into the temple. Motion tracker went berserk, contacts flooding the corridors, converging on his last known position. They were coordinated now, driven by something beyond human reaction. He needed to break that coordination. He kicked through a side door into what had been a control room. Ancient cogitators lined the walls, corrupted now, sprouting organic growths and weeping iridescent fluids. But the infrastructure was still there. Power conduits, Vox relay stations, even a corrupted servitor hardwired into the network. John pulled a melter charge from his belt, set the timer for 30 seconds, and planted it against the primary power junction. 29, 28. He was halfway down the corridor when the melter charge detonated. Superheated thermal lands punched through 5 meters of reinforced structure, melting conduits and fusing circuits. The temple's lighting died. Emergency strips flickered red, and more importantly, the Vox network shrieked and went silent. The cultists' coordination shattered instantly. Individual units calling out in confusion, firing at shadows, friendly fire blossoming in the darkness. John used the chaos. He moved through the temple like a surgical strike made flesh. Controlled bursts from the MA5, knife work when silence mattered, melter charges on structural supports. Each action calculated, each kill necessary. He wasn't here to massacre, he was here to decapitate. Find the apostle, end the ritual, extract. But the temple fought back. Corridors that he'd mapped suddenly dead-ended into walls that hadn't existed seconds ago. Doors opened onto rooms that violated geometry, spaces larger inside than outside, stairwells that ascended and descended simultaneously. The warp bled through thick here, and John's shields dropped to 40%, then 30%. His HUD glitched, showing him afterimages of himself dying in a dozen different ways. He ignored them, stuck to what was real: motion tracker, ammunition count, objective waypoint. And then he found the inner sanctum. The apostle waited on the dais, alone now, his cultists scattered through the temple hunting their ghost. The portal behind him pulsed, nearly complete, a tear in reality 8 meters high, roiling with colors that shouldn't exist. Through it, John glimpsed something vast and terrible, a realm where thought was substance, where impossible entities swam through void that wasn't void, where
They evacuated him to the unbreakable doctrine, while Kaelith IV burned below, not with exterminatus, but with cleansing fire as Imperial forces purged the remaining cultist cells. John watched from the Medicae bay, while Chirurgeons removed bullets and fused his ankle, their prayers mingling with the hiss of surgical lasers. His armor hung in the corner, battered but intact, purity seals already affixed by zealous crew members. Inquisitor Haliestus visited 3 days into his recovery. She said nothing at first, just studied him with that glowing augmetic eye while data scrawled across her vision. Finally, "You are an anomaly, Master Chief. One that could reshape our understanding of the warp, of faith, of humanity's place in the cosmos, or that could doom us all." "I just want to go home," John said quietly. "I know." Haliestus produced a data slate. Magos Ven 11 Sigma has been analyzing the warp signature from your arrival. He believes, and this is theoretical, that the Forerunner artifact that pulled you here created a unique resonance. If we can replicate it, we might be able to reverse the process. She paused. But the Mechanicus demands a price: your cooperation, your knowledge, especially regarding your AI, this Cortana you mentioned. John's expression hardened. Cortana's gone, lost in the transition. Perhaps, Haliestus said. Or perhaps she's simply scattered. The warp does not destroy, it transforms.
If fragments of her exist in the immaterium, they could be recovered for a price. It was bait. John knew it. The Inquisition never gave anything without strings. But if there was even a chance, a fragment of Cortana, a way home, a chance to leave this nightmare, he had to take it. "What do you need from me?" he asked. Haliestus smiled. "There is a forge world, Strophus 7, where Xenos artifacts are studied in secret. Recently, they recovered something that matches your Forerunner description. I want you to accompany an expedition there. Investigate. And if this artifact can open a way home, then perhaps you'll finally escape the 41st millennium's embrace." John met her gaze. "And if I refuse?" "Then you remain here, forever, fighting wars that are not yours for an empire that will never fully trust you, until chaos or Xenos or simple exhaustion claims you." She straightened. "The choice, Master Chief, is yours, but choose quickly. In the Imperium, even heroes have expiration dates." She left. John sat alone in the Medicae Bay, surrounded by the hum of machines and the distant thunder of the ship's guns firing at nothing. He thought about Cortana's last words before the artifact activated. "Don't make a girl a promise you can't keep." He'd promised to find her, to bring her home. And John 117 had never broken a promise. Outside his viewport, the stars of the 41st millennium burnt cold and distant. Somewhere among them was a forge world, an artifact, maybe a way home, or maybe just another battlefield. But that was fine. Battlefields he understood. And if he had to fight his way across this entire grim, dark galaxy to keep his promise, then that's exactly what he'd do. Because in the end, faith hadn't saved him. Skill hadn't saved him. Stubbornness had. And in the 41st millennium, where there was only war, where gods bled and empires burned, sometimes stubbornness was all you needed. Brother Captain Aldrich watched the Master Chief from a scrying lens one last time. Beside him, his chaplain whispered, "He is dangerous, Captain. A soldier without faith is a weapon without a master." "No," Aldrich replied quietly. "A soldier without faith is a weapon that chooses its own targets. And in this galaxy where even the faithful falter, perhaps that is exactly what we need." The lens darkened. The Master Chief slept, dreaming of home. And across the Imperium, forces both holy and profane turned their gaze toward the green-armored warrior who should not exist. The hunt was far from the end. It had only just begun.